after e4, e6, d4, d5, knight c3 and c5, the marshal is on the board. So as mentioned in the previous video, you have to take the pawn in d5, and after the pawn takes back, bishop b5 check. And after knight to c6, in the previous video we went through a little bit of everything, so feel free to check it out. Make sure you watch that one before watching this one. So knight c6 now, and now we take the pawn in c5. This is for free. So what's new in this video that wasn't seen before are the two following moves. Bishop takes back the pawn in c5 and knight to f6, which are two of the most popular moves. So bishop to c5, the black player basically gives up a pawn because now queen takes d5 is possible. You should take this pawn. And obviously the black player is not interested in swapping pieces, especially the queens, because black is down in material. So the move that now black goes on with is obviously for the sake of development. Queen to b6, this is the move that they always play, puts pressure on f2, saves the queen from the swap and everything. But here's what you need to play, and that wins the game immediately. Knight to e4. That's it. There's double attack on c5. You're going to win this bishop for free unless black moves it. But where? Let's look at three possible moves now. One of them being the bishop just moving away to d4. By the way, the bishop can't take the pawn in f2 because the knight is protecting that. And look, if bishop f2, you might argue, okay, knight takes back, but the queen now happens to defend the bishop in b5, so the black player has achieved absolutely nothing. So here, bishop to d4, you play knight to d6 check, game over. The king can't go to, let's say, f8 because queen f7 is made. King to, let's say, going on the d file means knight to c4 check, wins the queen. And obviously after this check, there's nothing else that's really worth seeing. King to e7. You're still going to f7 check, sacrificing the knight. But then bishop f4 check. King c5 is not possible because queen c4 is made. So bishop blocks, and you're going to play long castle, and you're going to mate in 10 moves. It's an unbelievable position to play. And even if you think knight to d4 and now c3 seems a bit too slow, besides the queen's attacking the bishop, and you're afraid that this king will survive, then here just take the bishop. It makes it easier. King takes, rook e1 check. King to d6 check. King goes down, check. King goes down, check, and then mate. So let's go from the start so we familiarized with this a bit more. d5, knight c3, c5. Okay, take, check. Knight c6, take this pawn. And after bishop takes back, queen d5. Now obviously the swap will be favorable. So after queen b6, knight e4. There is nothing else to do. Let's say queen takes bishop. This is simply met with knight d6 check. And obviously the knight is going to win the queen. So bishop d6 is the only move. And now you take the queen. So it's queen for two bishops. You're already winning. Let's see how we can carry on this to a more comfortable endgame. Let's play a few moves. Knight f6. Bishop to g5 is the best move. The idea of taking and breaking the pawn structure. Bishop e7, stopping that. You still take, because after bishop takes back, you go on with development. It's important that you develop in order not to be crushed by the initiative of the opponent. But at this point, you are up 4 points in material. Position obviously evaluated like +4 as well, or something like that. At this point, you're winning the endgame. All you need to do is just simplify. Your opponent has the bishop pair, which could be annoying, but you do have a majority here on the queen side. You can start pushing, and there are no real threats. So let's look at it again. Knight c3, c5, take, bishop check. Every move we play is an attack. Bishop takes back, queen takes, queen b6, and now knight e4. What happens if black plays the best move, which is bishop to e7? Now here we don't have that much of an advantage. I mean, it's +2 or something, so it's still really good, considering that we just out of the opening. Our opponent is just playing a terrible opening. Bishop to e3 now. There's an attack on the queen, and there's also double attack on c6. So if the queen moves to a5, you can play a move like c3, and then you still have double attack over c6. Let's see, for example, c3. Okay, let's say now bishop to d7 to reinforce the defense over c6. This is a very well-known blunder. You're supposed to know this. Bishop takes c6 wins for white. The black queen is a loose piece. You're threatening to take it for free. So bishop takes c6 doesn't work. You're going to win the queen. If queen takes the queen, then bishop simply takes back and you're up a piece. So that was very silly. So in this position, after bishop e3 with an attack on the queen, what happens if queen to c7, for instance? Okay, go on with development. Knight f3, Knight f6 attacking the queen. Queen to e5, attacking the queen. So best thing to do obviously now. Also because white is threatening to play knight d4 and put more attack over c6, and then the queen wouldn't really want to go to d8. It's so much waste of time. And also we're going to look at queen d8 in a second. If queen takes, knight takes, this is a very weird variation. I wasn't expecting it, but obviously I saw it 1 minute later. Here we're giving up a knight for free, but this cannot really be taken. We got double attack on the knight in c6. So if black, let's say, takes the knight in e4, okay, take. And obviously take is you're attacking the rook, you're attacking the knight, you're attacking the king. White wins in material. If bishop to d7 now, which seems the move, well, obviously play knight a7, thematic move. The rook can't take because of this bishop. Well, first you will want to trade and then take the rook. After bishop takes, knight takes back with a threat on c7. This is a much better endgame for white. Castle, castle. This is the way to go. White has 2 extra pawns that can already start pushing on the queen side. Black doesn't even have the bishop pair or any sort of compensation. So in this position, after bishop e3 attacking the queen, last thing we haven't looked at is queen back to d8, which was kind of mentioned before. Now here we're winning in material, we're up a pawn, so we're happy to trade. And after take, knight to d6 check, king to f8, and now long castle. The knight's putting pressure on b7. That means if the bishop moves, you can take this pawn for free. There's no compensation. If black plays, let's say a6, attacking the bishop. Okay, take, and now simply knight to f7. And there's double attack on the bishop, there's an attack on the rook, so after king takes and rook takes, you're completely winning. Bishop to b7 doesn't work here because you have a fork that wins the bishop. And there's no way to properly develop by black. Black can't move the knight anywhere without losing the rook. So that's also why not only we have a material advantage or positional advantage, but also development advantage. So it's pointless now. g6, the best move is knight to f3. That's a typical computer move, because here you will think of playing something like bishop to d4. The rook is kind of trapped there. That would be a more human move. But obviously the best move is knight to f3. The black player is still paralyzed. And obviously if king moves to d8 with an attack of the rook, our best move will be rook to d1. White's idea now is to simply play d4, bishop to d4, and that's game over. Position evaluated like -7 or something like that. So let's move on. After e4, e6, d4, d5, knight c3, c5, take, bishop b5 check, knight blocks, pawn takes. One of the best moves by black will be knight to f6 because it defends this pawn, and now black is threatening to simply develop the bishop and carry on with a respectable normal game. Okay, white goes on with bishop to e3, defending this pawn, and that's what we're gonna be remembering about this game, because don't memorize move, right? Just remember the patterns. Bishop now here defends this pawn. So if black takes the pawn in c5, in the earlier variation, we saw how this pawn in d5 is free. If black protects it with the knight in f6, then our pawn in c5 that we took from the black player is going to be free through our move bishop e3. And also remember that you always want to build this ideal pawn structure a3, b4, so the black can never take anything. So after the development, okay, let's see bishop e7 is the best move. What happens after knight to g4? Immediately attacking the bishop, trying to take our bishop pair. We don't care. We take this pawn for free. And after knight takes, pawn takes. Look, we have an isolated pawn, a double pawn here. Still, this is the best for us. We have double attack over the square c6. So what to do now? If black goes on with development, the black player doesn't want to swap here, obviously. So bishop e6, trying to develop, loses immediately. So the black player should have swapped because bishop takes, pawn takes, and now check. And obviously queen blocks, not possible, you're attacking the rook. Bishop blocks, queen e4 check. And now bishop to e7, long castle. You are completely winning. You're threatening knight to d5, you're threatening c6 also right now because the bishop is pinned. It's completely pointless to see. So knight g4, drop the pawn. That's what you gotta remember. So here, let's go once again, the last line, then we'll close this video. Okay, take, knight f6, bishop e3. So knight g4 drops this pawn. So what happens after bishop e7 and an attempt of the black player to play a normal game? Okay, knight ge2, castle, h3, a6. Okay, we don't swap. The game is open and we don't have a reason to unify this pawn structure. So after bishop a4 and bishop to f5 developing, castle. So remember, your advantage here consists of one extra pawn and the fact that there's a majority already developed on the queen side, and the fact that black has no compensation. So you gotta keep the two bishops on the board. You wanna play a3, b4 soon enough. So I move like h6 now, a3. You see, there's nothing for the... Remember, black can't push b5 because you can take it for free. You're completely winning. Rook to c8 to put double attack on this pawn eventually when the knight moves. b4, too late. This pawn chain is stable and the engine tells you that this is here to stay. There is no way for black to dismantle this. Unless black wants to give up material. Knight to e5, trying to maybe go to c4, threaten to go to b2, winning the bishop pair, with an attack on the bishop, the queen, and the bishop in e3 as well. Knight to f4 comes now, with the extra attack over d5. Now we have a lot of attack over d5. So if the knight goes to c4 for real, first play bishop to b3. And now knight to b2 will get the knight trapped. So the knight will be forced back. And then you're gonna have the nice central pawns. You can push c4 as well. Completely winning situation for white. So in this position, what happens if the bishop defends the pawn in e6? Okay, rook to e1. And there's nothing here for black. If g5, for instance, attacking the knight. Okay, take the bishop pair. Pawn takes back. Bishop to d4. Attacking this knight. Knight to c6, attacking the bishop. That's a free pawn. So we were going to win that pawn because the rook was skewering the knight and the pawn. And there was no way for black to defend that. Don't worry about losing the bishop pair as well, because then you just take back. You're completely winning here. This is an isolated pawn. You got enough attack on it, extra material, and a majority on the queen side.